Hi, I'm Rashonda Kay. This is Rashonda's Reading Room. We are reading Hagar's Daughter by Pauline Hopkins. We are on chapter 13, which I already started reading. I read a couple of pages in and realized that it wasn't actually recording my voice. It just was recording my image, but not my voice. So that makes me a little sad, but I was only a couple of pages in as opposed to the whole chapter through. Actually, the chapter's not even that long. So I'll start over. For me, it's the second time. For you, it's the first. All right, chapter 13, Playing with Fire. About lunchtime that same morning, as Sumner was leaving the office, a note was brought to him by a servant in plain livery. May we not be friends for the sake of the old days when no other woman was dearer than I? Come to me just once. Aurelia, New York Avenue. Well, she did not waste any time. Sumner's brow was knit as he scanned the sheet of ivory paper in his hand with its emblazoned monogram. He muttered an imprecation. Elise Bradford, the stenographer, glanced up from her work in surprise. Sumner was a gentleman in the office and a great favorite with all the employees. It was rare to hear an uncouth expression from the lips of this man who honored all womanhood. Does he really? I don't know. Maybe he does honor all womanhood, but maybe he only honors women who are of his class or women who are of his race. Maybe he doesn't honor women who are employed for a living or women who are prostitutes or women who are anything other than what his idealized womanhood is. And as he doesn't have a mom, and moms are often, not always, but often the icon of idealized womanhood, what is all womanhood to him? And maybe he's, one of the good guys who really does honor all womanhood. I don't know, but I have questions. I'll keep reading. I thought that was all over and done with, he muttered to himself. What is the use of going through with it all again? Well, I suppose I must go once for decency's sake, but I'll take care to make short work of it. There shall be no misunderstanding. Then softer thoughts came to him as he took from a pile of commonplace business letters on his desk a slim satiny envelope. It was from Jewel. He opened it and read the few lines it contained, reminding him of an appointment that he had with her for the evening. My little Blossom, he said gently. But his little Blossom did not keep him from going to see Aurelia Madison. She was less than nothing to him. He had never met her from the day he left Cape May until the night before. He never even thought of her. Yet he went to call upon her, reluctantly and distastefully, but he went. So now I'm thinking of Austin Powers, the first one, where he slept with a lot of vagina while he was on a reconnaissance mission. And he was talking to Elizabeth Hurley's character and was like, she was nothing to me. She's rotten, or whatever it was he said. But then he's also like, but I shagged her rotten. So I'm wondering, is that what's going to happen with our friend Cuthbert Sumner? Aurelia Madison may be nothing to him, but he went to go see her. Let's keep reading. He was ushered into the drawing room, scented and flower-filled. A moment later, Aurelia came into the room from the library. Ah, she stirred even his cold heart. A white negligee clothed her from throat to foot. A white negligee, excuse me. And her wonderful hair was caught in a mass low down on her neck. A deep light was in the dusky eyes that bewildered a man and weakened his energies. In an instant, she came swiftly to him. The white arms were about his throat, the warm lips against his. My love, she murmured softly, and Cuthbert Sumner, blind and foolish, was not the kind of man to let the memory of little Blossom prevent him from holding a beautiful, yielding form closely clasped in his arms and returning clinging kisses with interest when such a rare opportunity offered. I question if there are many men that would. I should hope there are men that would. He is engaged to Jewel. I would like to think that my husband, if a woman threw herself in his arms and started kissing him, would not hold on and return the kisses, but rather would be like, oh no, excuse me, ma'am. What's not going to happen is you're not going to be making out with me and I'm married to the wonderful Rashonda Kay. That's what's not going to happen right now, is what I would like to think my husband would do. She was playing a part in a desperate game that meant everything to her. This was her first move toward the end she had vowed to accomplish. She would be victorious. She swore it. Her role was not a hard one, for she worshiped this man. There it is again, worshiping people. For she, what do we think about that? Anyway, all right. Her role was not a hard one, for she worshiped this man so cold and unyielding to her arts. She would have preferred the lilies of virtuous winning. Debarred from that, she would take the torments of a love to which she had no right. By and by, she said, Bert, do you love her very much? He bowed with a long look. He bowed with a long look in her face. He bowed with a long, oh, he took a long look in her face, I guess. He bowed with a long look in her face. And not as you loved me, she said passionately. Tell me about her. My dear Aurelia, can a man sing the praises of one beautiful woman to another? Tell me about her, she said again with the imperious gesture that Sumner remembered so well in that summer at the Cape. I have not loved you for 2 long years, Bert Sumner, without learning every phase of your mind. When do you marry her? At Easter, he replied proudly, disdaining further subterfuge. And you can sit there calmly and tell it to me. To me? She bit her lip a moment. There was less time than she had thought. She is very wealthy? Yes, as the world counts it, but I care not for that. If she had nothing, it would be the same to me. Maybe, maybe not. Would he have even met her if she hadn't been wealthy? Um, okay, so Aurelia's talking now. And I know this just because I know back and forth conversation, not because there are any conversation tags in here. I believe you, and I could see her beauty for myself, and she is good, not like me. She is an angel, my white angel of purity, he replied with a look of reverence on his face. My white angel of purity. Come on now. There is clearly a reason that is pasted into this conversation. Who talks like that? My white angel of purity. We'll find out more about it later, I'm sure, but let that marinate. Aurelia was a gorgeous tropical flower, Jewel, a fair, fragrant lily. Have you read Quicksand by Nella Larson? If you were going to read only one thing by Nella Larson, I suggest you read Passing. If you are going to read more than one thing by Nella Larson, I suggest you read Passing and Quicksand. In Quicksand, there is a multiracial woman who self-identifies as Black, but she is often described in terms like a gorgeous tropical flower. So that made me think about that. I'm wondering, so Larson's work came after this. I know she published Passing in 1929. Quicksand, I'm assuming, is around there. Was it 1931? I'm not exactly sure, but I am wondering if, phrases like this seeped their way into Larson's work. I'm curious about that. I was curious about something about Charles Chestnut's work earlier on my first read through about this. Oh, it was about the all womanhood part. But anyway, I've moved on from that. And now we're here. Aurelia was a gorgeous tropical flower, Jewel, a fair, fragrant lily. Men have such an unfortunate weakness for tropical blooms, they cannot pass them by carelessly, even though a lily lies above their hearts. Cuthbert could not ignore this splendid tropical flower. It caused his blood to flow faster. It gave new zest to living for an hour. Jewel was his saint, his good angel, and he loved her truly with all the high love a man of the world can ever know. He trusted her for her womanly goodness and truth, and Jewel returned his love with an intensity that was her very life. Okay, so I am reminded yet again of The House Behind the Cedars by Charles Chestnut. I know I've talked about it before, and let me make a correction. I said there was a character in there who was called the Goddess of Love and Beauty after Venus. She was actually called the Queen of Love and Beauty. But anyway, there's a character in House Behind the Cedars by Charles Chestnut who seems very much like Cuthbert Sumner in how he thinks about womanhood, right? Jewel was his saint, his good angel, and he loved her truly with all the high love a man of the world can ever know. He trusted her for her womanly goodness and truth. Like, that is kind of like the highbrow, upper crust, white male way of thinking about love, at least as portrayed in the fictions that we're reading. And I'm so intrigued by the similarities between Cuthbert Sumner here and Tryon in The House Behind the Cedars by Charles Chestnut. Like, I've done a reading of The House Behind the Cedars by Charles Chestnut. It's on YouTube. You can find it there. I'm intrigued by the two of them together. They were published around the same time. When did we say this was published? The early 1900s. I can't say I remember exactly. Was it 1903? 1901. I keep making it 1903. It was 1901. And let's look at The House Behind the Cedars. It's right here on my desk. All right, so House Behind the Cedars. I feel like it was published kind of in that same moment. It was published in 1900. It's always interesting to me to read some books side by side, and I'm actually reading House Behind the Cedars right now. This was fortunate for me that I'm reading these two simultaneously. I didn't plan it, but God's got all the plans in the world. But it's interesting for me to see the parallels between the way things are presented and the language used in both books. And it's always fun to read selected books together to see how their themes and language and things play against each other. So anyway, back to Cuthbert Sumner. He trusted her, her being Jewel here. He trusted her for her womanly goodness and truth, and Jewel returned his love with an intensity that was her very life. Aurelia looked at him and sighed heavily. May I know her? I am sure I cannot say. You may possibly meet her at some party. Then you do not object absolutely. I am glad, for we have invitations to Mrs. Bowen's ball. I want to go. She looked at him keenly. I think I have met Miss Bowen before. If I mistake not, we were at the Montreal convent at the same time. I am older than she and left just after she entered. I remember her as a sweet cherub who resembled a pictured saint. Well, that answers one of the questions we had because Jewel recognized her in a not good way. I love it when the plot thickens. Quite a coincidence, he replied with his usual courtliness for womankind, but for all that he mentally anathematized. Nice. I anathematized the idiot who had sent the cards and the convent where the girls had met. He was vexed and she felt it. I'm gonna look up anathematized right quick. Yeah, I am. Anathematized. Okay, it means to curse or condemn. That was pretty much what I thought it meant from the context, but I was like, let me pause and look that up. All right. Quite a coincidence, he replied with his usual courtliness for womankind. His usual courtliness for womankind. But for all that he mentally anathematized the idiot who had sent the cards in the convent where the girls had met, he was vexed, and she felt it. Yes, I shall go. She caught her breath sharply and then fell at his feet in all her exquisite beauty. What? Like she's literally worshiping at his feet. Can you never, never love me again, Bert? My life, my soul is yours. Can you not give me a little love in return? He lifted her up gently. It is too late to ask that now, Aurelia. Try and forget that you have ever loved me. Believe me, you will be happier. No one can more bitterly regret than I the misery of our past. So no one can more bitterly regret than I the misery of our past, so let us begin anew. I am so full of all the feels. There's no possible way that any of your life circumstances could make you regret that more than I do. My feelings are tantamount. They are the apex of feelings. There's no way you, in your womankind that I so deeply respect and trust, could have possibly felt something as deeply as I did. All right. All right. She thrust him from her wildly and bade him to go if he did not wish to see her fall dead at his feet. Cuthbert went away sadly. He knew the full power of Aurelia Madison's siren charms, nor was her emotion all feigned. She really felt all she had expressed. What was pride compared to the desolation that swept over her when she realized that his heart was hers no longer? Her great love obliterated even the thought of his wealth. She felt she should triumph in spite of the coldness with which he had received her professions of love. I mean, it didn't start off cold. His body was much warmer than his words were. Yes, she would be his wife, even though it were a barren honor, since his heart was not hers. If his love is not for me, it shall be for no one else. That's unhealthy. She told herself as she thought over the afternoon's work and prepared for the next move in the drama, and so Cuthbert Sumner went back to his little blossom whose calm, pure face was continually before him. Well, that's where we are. That was chapter 13. Until next time.